The striking intervention by the Trump administration in British domestic politics, it's an unusually sharp criticism of Kim Ledbetter's assisted dying bill, currently going through Parliament and now in the House of Lords. It's not simply a transatlantic disagreement on policy, but a vivid clash of moral frameworks, political rhetoric, and diplomatic convention. Last week, the House of Commons passed Kim Ledbetter's private member's bill by a slim majority of 23 votes, 314 to 291. And if passed into law, which is almost certain now, the bill will allow terminally ill adults with fewer than 6 months to live to apply for an assisted death. And approval would require two doctors and a multidisciplinary panel, including a social worker, a senior legal figure, and a psychiatrist. The bill now moves to the House of Lords, where it's expected to face stiff scrutiny and opposition. The Prime Minister has championed the measure, insisting it is absolutely the right thing to do and workable in all aspects. Wes Streeting, of course, has opposed it, despite and has been quite a vigorous cabinet opposition, including the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. Into this sensitive debate burst the Trump administration's State Department with a statement that has shocked many in London. In its Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labour, published on social media, as the UK Parliament considers support for state-sponsored suicide, euphemistically called a bill for terminally ill adults, the United States reaffirms its sanctity of life. The Western world should stand for life, vitality, and hope over surrender and death. Such language is unmistakably hostile, describing the British proposal as state-sponsored suicide, a phrase designed to strip away any humane or compassionate gloss. Why is this important? Firstly, it's diplomatically unusual. Allied governments rarely comment so aggressively on each other's domestic legislation, especially on conscience issues typically left to national parliaments. Secondly, it suggests an increasingly moralistic tone, or moralizing tone, from Trump's foreign policy machinery, one that views cultural conservatism not merely as a domestic stance, but as part of a global ideological mission. And this isn't the first time the State Department under Trump has criticised Britain. Last month, it also voiced concerns over free speech in the UK, specifically regarding prosecutions of anti-abortion activists and online hate cases. And critics of Trump's intervention have quickly pointed out a glaring inconsistency. 12 US states, plus Washington, D.C., already have their own assisted dying laws, often with less restrictive safeguards than the proposed UK model. As one British campaigner put it, they do know 12 US states already do assisted dying, don't they? Yet this apparent hypocrisy can be understood if one sees the Trump administration's stance not as a matter of internal consistency, but as a deliberate assertion of cultural and religious values on the global stage, using foreign policy to reinforce a conservative moral identity. It's worth noting that Trump's Supreme Court appointees, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, are outspoken opponents of assisted dying, and the Trump wing of the Republican Party is heavily influenced by pro-life and religious conservative lobbying. The British political response has been mixed so far. Downing Street was reportedly blindsided by the State Department statement. Sir Keir Starmer has refused to be deterred, insisting that his government has prepared thoroughly to ensure the bill is workable. Some on the Conservative benches agreed with the moral content of the US message, if not the diplomatic manner. Sir John Hayes, head of the Tory Common Sense group, described the week Parliament passed both abortion discrimination and abortion decriminalisation and assisted dying as a turning point in the wrong direction, warning of the horror of declaring some lives worthless. But he also called the US intervention itself disturbing, noting that it's unusual for our closest ally to become involved in the legislative detail of what goes on in Parliament. The dispute is not just about politics, but ethics. It reveals the enduring clash between two moral frameworks: the sanctity of life tradition, which insists life must be preserved at all costs, seeing state-sanctioned ending of life as morally corrosive, and the autonomy and compassion framework, which prioritizes individual choice, dignity, and relief from suffering, even if it means permitting a medically assisted death. These are not trivial disagreements. They go to the heart of how a society defines compassion, responsibility, and freedom. And although the language was unusually strident, I don't think this will cause a rupture in Anglo American relations, but it is a sign that under Trump, US diplomacy will become less tactful, more moralizing, willing to lecture even close allies if they stray from its preferred conservative values. And it also shows how polarization in the United States bleeds into its foreign policy, making even neutral or traditionally special relationships more liable to tension. Kim Ledbetter's bill now faces a potentially bruising journey in the House of Lords, where questions of coercion, safeguards, and ethical limits will rightly be tested in detail. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has signalled it's not merely watching from afar, but prepared to interfere rhetorically in Britain's democratic debates. This episode is a powerful reminder that in the modern world, even the most personal and intimate moral choices, how we die, how we care for the dying, are subject to fierce political contest, both at home and abroad. As Britain debates assisted dying, it must do so on its own terms, with its own conscience, not at the behest of any foreign moral crusade, however well intentioned.